But yeah, so we'll get started. So as always, I have to just introduce it to explain that this is live Q&A on anything to do with World of Warcraft. Just discuss whatever you want. I'm going to start off today with a post that caught my eye on the European forums. The European forums. It wasn't an interesting post by Blizzard though, so we don't get those. But we had an interesting post by someone playing on the European forums, which is particularly interesting to me. Which goes, where is it? Hold on. I've now gone and lost it. Oh, there it is. I am just curious what other players' thoughts are about older people who play games. I don't feel 40 mentally. They've just turned 40 today. Oh no, 2 days ago. Sorry, 2 days ago. They're 40 in 2 days now. Blah, blah, blah. I still play games, especially MMOs. Is there anyone here 40 plus? Yes. I'm 41. And as I was saying in my reply to that, I remember, I always say, it's actually really weird because someone asked me this last week about how can you remember things that happened a long time ago. Like I can remember a lot of vanilla and TBC stuff. Better than some more recent stuff. I suppose it depends on how much you like it. But I remember turning 30 during Anchorage Progress. I don't actually remember turning 40. But I could probably work it out. What was out last May? Oh, actually, I think that's probably because I wasn't doing anything. Yeah, that was right. Well, no wonder I can't remember what I was doing when I turned 40. There was no content to do. That was when we were enduring our content drought during Warlords of Draenor. Hellfire Citadel had been conquered 6 months before, and there was still a good few months left before Legion was going to come out. That's why I can't remember that. But yeah, I thought that was an intro. There's plenty of loads of posts. Oh, so there's a good reply down here, though. Oh, no, I've lost it again. Yes, Tolkien... Actually, this is slightly... Well, it's sort of right and it's sort of wrong. It says, Tolkien started to write The Lord of the Rings at the age of 45, if I'm not mistaken. Sort of didn't. I mean, he may have sat down to write the books at that age. But the actual stories he was working on, obviously, from being a young man in the army. But yes, I mean, obviously, the Tolkien reference I quite liked there. Because obviously all modern fantasy games, stories, everything pretty much derives from Tolkien, or a lot of it anyway. And yeah, he was when he got his success, and he got his success almost immediately when he started actually writing the stories. Sorry. I'm not sure the bulk are over 30, although you can be forgiven for thinking that, because I mean, what always surprises me. Good evening, Manav. What always surprises me is just how many people still go mad for anything to do with vanilla or TBC. And I'm thinking, well, the people, or even Warcraft 3, and the people who remember that must be at least in their 30s, at least. And yet, it would be surprising if the majority are over that age. I mean, they may be, I don't know. But it would just be surprising. I mean, it's possibly maybe more surprising to me because I am, I suppose, just in the circles I am, in Mythic raiding still, and it's not very common to find people my age in Mythic raiding. But then it could be argued that the reason why people my age are not in Mythic raiding in force is because of like families and domesticity and all the other stuff that I don't do. So it's very possible that maybe there are loads and loads of people that are over 30 and they just can't play Mythical for whatever reason because they've got other stuff on. That might be it. It'd be interesting to know if Blizzard. I wonder if Blizzard can even I mean, I suppose they can't accurate themselves work it out. They can only tell how old you say you are when you sign up to it. You asked me this before, didn't you? Well, I mean, I'll go through really quickly what I do in terms of managing everything I do. So, typical week for me. I mean, you know, different people have different ideas about what is the start of the week. Usually people will now define it as Monday because that's the start of the working week. But for me, I consider my week to start on Friday, whether that means because of a subtle shift away from just thinking about my job at college. Yeah, I think of it as Friday because that's the one day of the week when there's like... So I get back from work. Oh, reset day. Very good. But I get back from work and usually chill out for a bit because I'm knackered. Then start to go through to see if there's been any latest news. I've usually written a few notes about various videos that I need to do that weekend already. So the planning's sort of been done. So I'll check out if there's any news, anything of interest on like Reddit or MMO Champion or Wowhead or good God forbid, even the official forums occasionally has a bit of news on it. And just put together the little bits of news that I want to talk about in the WoW Flash. Get the WoW Flash done and get that out. This Friday, I may actually do an impromptu stream. I don't want to sort of advertise it yet, but what you may have noticed if you came on here before I started streaming is I won't be able to stream tomorrow because, again, you know, it's not actually work that's shafting me tomorrow, but I've got an appointment, medical appointment tomorrow that unfortunately has to be quite late. So that basically snooker's raiding, which means snookering streaming. I'm not streaming me being in a waiting room. And a few months a year. I work the other months as well. I just do it at my own pleasure. So I can be my own boss for those. For the quarter of the year, yeah, when I basically get off. Which Blizzard never actually schedule their time for. But yeah, first Friday is relatively chill. And the reason I actually don't do any work on Friday, I mean, I'll do stuff for the channel because I don't consider that work, but I don't do any work. The reason is because when I started teaching, I remember my very first week. So I mean, it was like getting up in the morning, getting to work, getting back from work, working all the way through the night, quick bite to week, working all the way through the night, going to bed, getting up, same thing. Friday, same thing. Saturday was working, Sunday was working. I got to Monday, I woke up Monday morning, I thought, I had a break. I've just worked all the way through the week. Didn't get a break. So I thought for the following week, I can't afford to just give myself weekends off. As a new teacher, it's too busy. All your lesson planning. Like now I'm experienced enough to be able to, I've done lessons so many times and I've done in such variations that it doesn't take me as long to plan them. But at the time it did. So I thought to myself, right, I can't give the whole weekend. I still have to work most of the time. But I'll give myself Friday evening off. I'll just go out with my mates or something like that, or just chill, whatever. Friday evening off. So ever since then, I've never done any work on Friday evening. Even though now I can afford to do it without the risk of working all weekend. So I usually occupy myself doing some other like planning. So I'll do the WoW Flash video. Sometimes I'll do another video as well, but then I'll mostly try and do some planning. And then Saturday I sleep because I'm not a morning person, so I take advantage of weekends and I don't sleep. So I go to bed later and I get up later. And then yeah, it's just videos Saturday and Sunday. I always adapt them for a different class. I'm not lazy. I will, but obviously, yes, the PowerPoints I'm using. Because mostly my PowerPoints as well, and they're not notes on them. I don't read wall of text. My PowerPoints just have useful images on it. Because I know what I'm talking about. I don't need things of notes to guide me. So yeah, I mean, and that's how I manage it. You're just doing whatever. I mean, I've always got more videos I want to do than I can do. This is why I keep, every now and then I'll sometimes say, oh, I'll talk about a video that I'm planning to do. And I always regret it because then I usually end up not doing it because something else crops up. So I've constantly got a huge list and then I'm just doing the priorities. But that's not to say that all the videos I think of doing end up being good, which is why I still ask for suggestions from people. What would people actually like me to do? Because I'm not necessarily a brilliant judge about the sort of videos that people would like to see. And then you have to think about as well the time involvement in them. Because I'm not full-time, so I can't afford to spend a day on one video, for example. And... but anyway, let's go back onto that. I'll come back to that if we slack off a bit. So let's have a look. Is the Scarring Silithus finally Blizz engaging old redundant zones with new content or a one-off? It's a really good question. I don't know. It could be, couldn't it? I'll tell you what I would like it to be. I will tell you what I would like the Silithus thing to be. I would like it to be that they are extending scaling in zones to all zones, and that they're going to have 2 versions of some zones depending on where you are in the storyline. So Silithus as it is now is still going to be as it is now for people leveling up to there, but when you've got to a certain point, let's say the next expansion or whenever it's intended to hit, then it changes. Like Blasted Lands. Blasted Lands already is a zone in 2 different time things you can switch between. I would like them to do more of that. Hi Picatag, I'm fine, thank you. Are you? The Full Monty, now I feel like an expert on Yorkshire. Ironically, most of the actors in that were not from Yorkshire. But it was the Full Monty did actually capture the... I mean, it was written by someone from Yorkshire, of course. And it was my part of Yorkshire as well. There are different parts of Yorkshire. They all have their own, characters. I have seen the new Star Wars trailer, yes. I think it's just a huge tease, the new Star Wars trailer. It's clearly trying to give us the wrong idea about everything. Everything, indeed. But I don't know about world quests with Silithus. I don't think... Obviously, they're not going to have time to populate all the old zones with world quests. That would be a massive undertaking. And if they even tried it, they'd end up doing a crap job of it, because they'd have to spend so little time on each one. But I would like to think that just revisiting Silithus is an example of, it is a precursor to having scaling in all zones. I would like to think that's what it's going to be. I prefer World Quest to Dailies. Now, people have sort of tackled me before and gone, well, what is the basic difference? I don't know, but I just prefer World Quest to Dailies. I think... I mean, the actual nature of the quests are usually more interesting as well. But it's just the fact, even presentation-wise, this daily thing, there was a very strong suggestion that you had to do them. So I rebelled against it after I didn't have to do them. Whereas with world quests, it's much less about having to do them and more, they're there for you if you want. So, although, if you really want to break it down, there's probably not a great deal of difference. I think it feels better and I think it's presented better. Something a bit different about running to a hub, picking up a load. Well, this is the thing, right? Going to a hub, picking up a load of quests and all the rest of it. That is what I was most annoyed by when they changed all the 1 to 60 zones in Cataclysm. Because they were changing it to that model where you just go to a hub, pick up a load of quests, go and do them, go back, turn them in, and then get a breadcrumb quest to your next area. And although there was sometimes a bit of that in vanilla, there was also, I mean, you could pick up quests where go and do it, you would have to go miles away. Maybe not even on the same continent to do it. It certainly was not in the same zone. So there was a lot more of that. And although it wasn't as efficient because you'd have to do a lot of travelling, and if you weren't even level 40, you were doing it on foot. I liked that. I preferred that. I didn't begrudge it when they changed the new style for expansions, because with expansions you don't get as many zones and it's probably just more sensible to do the hub-based thing. But they should have kept the vanilla ones the same, because there's 60 levels worth of zones. Re-energizing old zones saves a lot of design and world work for content. I also think I mean, at the moment, you've got to think you're running out of space, because we've explored most of the known landmasses of Azeroth. So either they invent new ones, or what else do you do when you've run out of space? Instead of building houses, you build high-story flats, don't you? Towers. So it was the same thing here. I would build layers on top of the zones that already exist. And I'd quite like them to do that. Remember a Redridge quest where you had to go to a tavern in dusk? Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's sometimes much further afield. Like I keep harping on about this example of this elf near the, I think he was near the alchemist trainer in Stormwind, who would send you off to Thousand Needles. That's Horde area. It's Horde area on another continent. The Paladin, the level 20 Paladin quest. Let me try and remember where you had to go for this. You had to go to Lochmadan. I mean, that was straightforward, but still a long way away. You had to go to Shadowfang Keep, which was Horde lands, when the original Dalaran was still there. You had to go to Blackfathom Deep, because I remember struggling to find it, actually, because there seemed to be a mistake on the map in the manual. But fortunately, I got quite lucky. There was a group in trade asking for a 5th person to join on a dungeon group there, a group of friends, so I ended up going there. Well, that's what, yeah, Blackfathom Deeps was in Ashenvale. Because you had to get these different bits for your Verrigan's Fist, I think it was called. If I'm remembering that correctly. What else did I have to do for it? Can't remember. But I certainly remember those things. I remember Lochmadan, there was some ogres to mug. Blackfathom Deep. Because I ended up doing the dungeon. It turns out you didn't actually need to do the dungeon. You got the stuff actually from the mobs outside the dungeon, which weren't elite. So I could have soloed it, actually, but it didn't matter. I got to do a dungeon. Shadowfang Keeper, I did have to go into the dungeon. And something I can't remember. Cannot remember. Warrior, I remember Warrior quests as well. Warriors got more quests as well, didn't they? They seemed to get them every 10 levels. Hang on, what's this? What you on about? Next expansion, we work in tree houses like Ewoks. What? What tree houses? Oh, sorry, I see what you mean. About level building on, yes. I mean, coming back to the Star Wars trailer, I noticed that new thing with Chewbacca, his new little pet, that looks like a cross between, I don't know, a porpoise and a guinea pig. I don't know what the hell that's supposed to be. I wish they wouldn't keep putting in these cute creatures. They're only trying to sell toys with it. It's ridiculous. Annoys me. The rest of the film had better be good. I don't need cute fish rats. Like the dangerous feeling of pulling too many mobs as you move in. Now, how are we going to pronounce that? Because I always mix them up. Taliesin. Basically, he was saying Macquarie. Velen says Macari. And then he was trying to point out, because Ian has Acosta said Macquarie as well, that must be the right one. I don't know. I don't know. Like, I actually pronounced it Macquarie, I have to say, the first time I saw it. But then when Velen said it, I thought, actually, that's a better way of pronouncing it. So I'll call it Macari. But anyway, pulling too many mobs in Macari without flying reminds me of original zones. The problem is I don't really get that, because I don't mind pulling too many mobs, because I'll just Divine Storm them all down in the same time it takes me to kill 2 anyway. So yeah. AK-47. Well, I remember, not remember what I took. I was thinking, like in the UK, the registration, car registration licensing follows a bit of a pattern now, and you get the first 2 letters of it. It's 2 letters associated with a location, a part of the country. The next 2 are the year it was made. So at the moment, you would get... Well, actually, no. At the start of the year, you would have had 17 for 17. It will now be 57. Not for 57, but because you're getting 2 registrations 2 halves of the year. And then you get 3 letters as well. And there's going to come a time when in 1947... Because this is designed to be able to go all the way up to like 2049. So did I say 1947? I meant 2047. In 2040, I'm not going back in time. In 2047, in theory, unless the DVLA block this, it would be possible to have a registration AK-47 GUN. And I was thinking, I'm sure if people can do that, they will wish to get that, because that could be worth quite a lot of money, that registration. Well, okay, this is what I was thinking about different pronunciations, like, because I was actually ribbing him in comments. He hasn't responded to it, actually, saying maybe Ian Hazakostas, American, maybe Macquarie is the American pronunciation, Velen, sort of a European type accent, Noble, who's also said Macquarie, European, maybe Macquarie is the European pronunciation, maybe Taliesin's gone with the American pronunciation, when he probably shouldn't have done because he's European. For another year and a half, anyway. But no, I don't really notice the thing about the feeling of danger. The only feeling of danger is when there's a load of horde and I'm thinking, are they just out to have a good time, or are they going to turn around and mug me? There was a particular thing in a world quest I was doing yesterday where it was that doggy in the cave in somewhere, Antoran Waste, and there was you won't be able to link things, sorry. There was a load of horde in there, and I just thought, that's fine. I'll just tag it from a distance and let them kill it. It's fine. But a demon hunter started attacking me. I thought, I'm not having this. So I attacked him, but I thought at that point, are the other horde going to attack me, thinking I'm the one causing trouble or not? So I killed the demon hunter. No one else attacked me. So I thought, okay, well, that seems fine then. But I did, yeah, those are the only times when I actually get concerned. It's not the mobs themselves. I have since started using the Warframe as well, by the way. It is a lot quicker. Well, killing a rare every 10 minutes anyway, obviously. You can't use it on every rare because of the recharge time. But that's a lot better. I don't know why I didn't start using that first. But yeah, that's the only sense of danger. It's the opposite faction players. Rather than the mobs. Well, it was a different thing when I did it on the PTR and my Death Knight at a time when I had very poor gear. I get absolutely mugged, so I can sort of understand. Like if I took a freshly digged character there, there would probably be an intense sense of danger then, because not only horde players but also the actual mobs. Although I might be able to get their gear up a little bit because I've got so many of those bind on account armor tokens now. If I got a freshly digged character, I'd probably be able to get them decent item level quite quickly. I've forgotten what item level they are, though. There are 3 rares that need summoning. Are there? Oh, I'm not that bothered about achievements. I suppose I'll get it at some point. Yeah, well, as I say, my Death Knight, when I did it on PTR, my Death Knight was probably around about 850-ish. It wasn't. That's why I started to do a bit more on him to get some gear up. Dead Mines. Yeah, Iron Forge is where you got it crafted. That's where the guy crafted it for you. I can't remember the Dead Mines one then. I remember Loch Medan, Shadowfang Keep. Oh, I don't remember Darkshore either. Black Fathom Deeps. There were only so many boats, though. There weren't a lot of boats. You had, from the Alliance point of view, you had a boat in Booty Bay, which I think, because they've changed the routes as well. I think the one from Booty Bay went to Ratchet, I think. And then you had one from Menethil Harbour that went to Jaina's place, Theramore Isle. I think those were the only 2. And then presumably you had 2 Zeppelins doing similar journeys for the Horde. So there wasn't a lot. Mostly, I mean, the Menethil Harbour was the easiest one because at level 20 you wouldn't have thought of going down to Booty Bay. So you would go to Menethil Harbour. Zeppelin from Durotar from Undercity. Once more, I didn't play Horde. Like, well, I played a few levels just to see what it was like. I didn't actually play Horde properly. There were flight masters in vanilla, but you would generally have one per zone. And I don't think Elwyn Forest had any. No, it had, well, in Stormwind it did, but actually Elwyn Forest itself, I don't think had any. Like, the one in Goldshire wasn't there. So... And obviously, yeah, some... If it was a Horde zone, it wouldn't have any for the Alliance and vice versa. Yeah, I am planning on streaming while the BlizzCon main events, like the World of Warcraft events, are going on, so that we can actually discuss that while it is going on. How many video planning? It depends on what they talk about. Like BlizzCon itself, someone remind me when it is. Is it the end of the month? Or is it? Hold on, I don't know when it is. I've forgotten. Someone tell me when it is. I know it's either 1 or 2 weeks. No, hold on. Damn it. I've forgotten. Oh, no, don't say that. Is it November? I thought it was October. Bugger. So it's the 3rd of November, is it? In which... Oh, that's annoying. If it was the week before, or if it was 2 weeks earlier, that would have been perfect. If it was Friday the 20th, would have been perfect, because that's the start of my half term. 3rd of November means that I've got work the week before and work the week after, because I'm back at work. So it'll just depend on how much they say and how much I can get into videos without just rambling. I have just rambled before. I think last time I did 2 videos. Sort of depends. I suppose this time round there's an actual expansion with a lot of new stuff. But I can't plan on a certain number of videos because I don't know what they're going to say. I mean, although I have done a little bit of preparation. Potentially. It depends. It might not be finished for then, though. I've commissioned a little bit of artwork for things that I think are going to be in the next expansion. Now, if they're not, then okay, I'll use them for something else. But what's my favourite creature in WoW? Murlocs. My favourite enemy is gnomes. Exactly. Man Avenue straight away. But I like Murlocs. Where's my pointer? Murlocs are fun. And gnomes are not. Simple. I had a feeling BlizzCon was October. I obviously got that one wrong. Gnomes are not my best friend now. They are my worst enemies. They have never really been my friends. I used to be able to tolerate them. And then they just got increasingly annoying. What's wrong with Murlocs? What have we got against Murlocs? They're lovely. No, they were lovely then. The only time I ever had trouble with Murlocs was in Wetlands, because I was so bad as a Retribution Paladin in very early levels. It took me so long to kill something that by the time I was killing it, a patrol would come across and mug me. The gnomes, there's every number of things. I did a whole video on it. It's not just the squeaking. The squeaking is bad enough, though, to warrant extermination. But they're also smug about everything they do. Even when they're doing really simple things that anyone else can do, they make out like they've just won the Nobel Prize or something. It's just everything about them. Yeah, I've seen the schedule. So there's a significant announcement on the Friday, as expected. So I shall certainly be streaming for that. And then at some point I'm going to have to think about... Well, the time depends on whereabouts you are in the world. Can't remember where my schedule is now. I'm trying to remember. It's usually a little... Is it a little bit... It's in the evening anyway. It's not usually very late evening for me, because I think it's round about lunchtime-ish in California when they do that announcement. So it works out at evening for me, which works out quite nicely. It gives me enough time to get home, get something to eat, get set up. Well, I have a sneaking suspicion that you are sort of right. They do tend to have a new race roughly every couple of expansions. I've got a sneaking suspicion there's not going to be a new race as such, because I think it gets a bit silly after a while. But one idea that I know a lot of people would quite like, that might satisfy, would be sub-races or more customization of races as such. Because ultimately that's what a race is, isn't it? It's a customization of your character. I think what they might do in lieu of it is to expand the custom, or what I'd like to see them do anyway. I'm not saying I think they'll do it because they've said something, just because I don't think it makes sense to try and force another race on us, but it might make sense to expand the customization of our race, our character. You have RP guild called the City Guards, and it's got a gnome in it. Is this gnome your mascot? I can't see it being a city guard. Even the gnome guards, because when I was playing Horde for a bit, for about a year or so, I had reason to go to Nomrigan. For some reason, I forget why. It might have been to do a video. So I had to get to Nomrigan on a Horde character. All I did was fly over the gnome guards. They got a little bit upset with me, but I just disappeared down the lift and that was that. Yeah, Dark Iron Dwarves, High Elf, any sort of things like that. There's loads of things they could do. What's the point of customizing your toon's face when all you see is the back side? You don't always see that. You look at it every time you open your character pane. Ethereal, we don't even know what ethereals are really, do we? We know very little about ethereals. So to make them suddenly a player race, sorry, sounds a bit weird to me. They're a hugely suspicious, secretive race. So I'm not sure it makes sense to make them a player class. Sorry, they did what with pandas? People like, well, this is the thing that doesn't get me about Blizzard. They don't seem to appreciate just how much people like customizing their character. They made pandas a race without a lot of context. We had one in Warcraft 3. Chen Stormstart was in Warcraft 3. We learned all we needed to know about then. And we've also watched Kung Fu Panda, which makes up the other half of what we need to know about them. Anyone know if DBM does timers for the artifact challenges? I would imagine so. I would have thought so. They would by now. You can understand they may not have done at the time when it first came out, but I would think almost certainly they have now. Like the amount of, this is why I keep saying about, you know, they should add in more cosmetic stuff. I mean, they are adding in more, but I mean, they should just, you know, they don't always need to reward people with things that actually make your character more powerful. They do need some of that, obviously. But there's plenty of content they could get us to do, or most people to do, just for the sake of customizing our character. But it's like they don't like to go too far down that rabbit hole for some reason. I don't know what they've got against it. I think we hope Blizzard go outside the box again with new law. I think they inevitably have to. They've blown the current box apart. So they've got to, you know, whatever's going to come in the next expansion is going to be a massive surprise to everyone, I think. Do I plan on making similar types of videos, such as how the Paladin or Retribution as a spec has evolved over time? I did actually do, as a just purely vlog series, when I'd only just started the channel, a series on how, or it's really about my experiences playing a Paladin through different expansions. So I did do that one. There aren't any decent Chinese takeaways near me. The takeaways actually rare in this town I'm in. Absolute rubbish. There's a few ones that are alright. Wrath until Mop isn't much of an evolution now. There was one major evolution, and that was the change to the talent tree and the change to Holy Power in Cataclysm. I mean, Paladins have changed a lot. Out of all record, they changed a lot even just during vanilla. Like, out of all recognition, how they played when I started playing the game, which was not right at the start of WoW, but how they were when I started playing the game, compared with how they were, you know, a year later, almost unrecognisable. And then with each expansion, it's changed quite a lot as well. I think the only two consecutive expansions where it didn't change very much were between Mop and WoD. Mr. Pandaria to WoD. WoD didn't really add very much at all. Almost nothing, in fact. But I think every other expansion has added a significant amount. Yes, Crichton, after Legion is over, we lose our artifact weapons. Having Titan forging with weapons will be a massive problem. Blizzard will argue that it's not because we have Titan forging and everything else now. But the issue with weapons is that weapons are so important for so many classes. And you can argue that, you know, we already sort of have it because our item level is dependent on relics, and relics can Titan forge as well. But the fact that you have 3 relics gives you a little bit of a cushion, because you'd have to be spectacularly unlucky to get 3 very poor item level relics, and extremely lucky to get 3 like 955 ones basically. Whereas someone can easily get in the new system a 955 weapon, that person has got their luck, whereas they'd needed that to have happened 3 times in Legion. So I do think Titan Forge weapons will be an issue. But I also don't think Blizzard see it as an issue. So we'll just have to deal with it. But again, how annoying will it be if, say, someone who could, like well, say Retribution Paladin, that really wants it, would, you know, it's going through all the tier and not getting it, and then someone like Windwalker, it appears now, that don't really care much about item level, you know, they get a 955 one, it's like, not that bothered. I don't think Blizzard hate Paladins at all. I actually think they love Paladins. But you got to remember there's different teams at Blizzard, you know. And it might even be just a couple of people, a couple of very influential people in the class design team that not necessarily dislike them, but just don't understand them. Or have some philosophy where Paladins just fall foul of it. You know, we used to fall foul of the hybrid tax because we were a class that could heal. It was like, well, you can heal. It's like, yeah, but our healing's worthless as DPS. But you could still do it. And now I don't even know. Obviously, there's other issues around it. Like, we're really good if you can just, I mean, you know, if they were to design an actual patchwork fight, we'd be perfectly good for that. We'd be fine for that. But they don't. And I think that's it. I think sometimes they don't necessarily understand the effects that movement has on our DPS, because you get a class like, you know, a rogue, say, or a monk, which has to, I mean, they've obviously got a dual resource system, but, you know, they can do loads of DPS, and then if they have to move or swap target, well, they can do that. Their energy's regenerating while that's happening. They can go back on. It's not that movement's fine for them. It's just that it's not as damaging, whereas ours is You know, we don't have that sort of resource that we have to wait to build up. We have no resource that builds up over time, which basically means is we need to be hitting something every second, and if we're not, we're good. I wonder if if Blizzard will address how powerful our characters are now. They might make us more powerful, but I'm not sure. Well, the thing is, I mean, everything's getting much more epic now, but then I had this fear about things getting too epic in Wrath, and yet the game's gone on way, way longer. Because I was worried in Wrath, the fact that we were having Titan constructs and stuff like that, and it was like, oh, this is getting a bit serious now. And it wasn't. We've carried on going from expansion to expansion. So they've somehow seemed to have managed it. So I think we'll just... oh yeah, they said something about the Q&A, didn't they? The Prolonged Power World Quest boss. Because it just, from whatever freakish coincidence, hasn't spawned again since the first time. I don't have it on my Alchemist either. But at least it will be coming because it's on a set rotation now. So it has to come at some point. What happens to Paladin Priest if we find out the light is corrupted? Well, what I find an interesting paradox when I think about it, and I've never really thought about it before, Legion, is that when you think about like the light against the void, all of the races, with the possible exception of Warlock Warlock characters, but all of the other ones, whether Horde or Alliance or whatever, tend to consider the light to be a good thing and the void to be a bad thing. But most of the playable races, or of those of Azeroth descent, are void created. Like humans were the result of, like, we were devolved from Vrykul, and dwarves from Earth, and gnomes from useful gnomes, and blah 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 blah. You're going to try and do your Blood DK artifact challenge. See you later then. Good luck with that. Do I get time to play the game every day? Not a lot, no. If I'm really busy at work. Like today, I only just got back in time to get something to eat and then come on the stream here. So I haven't been online. I haven't been on the game today yet. I mean, I will after to get some World Quest done. And get up to... I can at least get up to artifact level 68. I mean, if I'd have had more time, I'd have hopefully been able to get up to 69. But I have to do that next week now. Another MMO they have a system called Mentoring, where 110 player can mentor down to 25 and play at that level. They had a similar situation in Warhammer Online. I think it was the other way though. It worked the other way. You mentored upwards. So what we sometimes did, because that was really a PvP game. In fact, I have a video still somewhere of where we went on an orc rampage. So I didn't have an orc, so I created an orc, a low-level orc, just leveled it up a little bit in like an hour, and then went around with the other people, and someone mentored me up so I could be at high level, and we just went around with this huge orc war, mugging all the Order forces. But I don't really see a use for it in WoW, I have to say, because it doesn't seem to have that. As an MMO goes, and as a successful MMO goes, it doesn't quite somehow seem to have that social aspect of being out in the world with mixed levels of character. I suppose if they had zone scaling, it would basically do the same thing in a sneaky way, wouldn't it? Because if everything's scaled, then 110 character could go to a zone with a level 25 character, and it would all, it would all be on the same footing. Am I streaming the gameplay after? No, because it'll be one of those things where I'm not going to sit down and just get a load of World Quest done. I'm going to be popping in and out and doing all sorts of things. But I may do a stream on either Friday or Saturday, an extra one. Obviously, I'm going to do Saturday afternoon as usual to try and compensate for the loss of Wednesday. Friday, I may be too tired, but I may do it Saturday evening, if not Friday evening. Do I think they'll reset people's prestige levels? I would have thought so, because the alternative is that you just extend it. I guess that's possible. I mean, I just wish they had a prestige level system in PvE. I wish it was just... because then that'd be like much more like Elder Scrolls Online. You wouldn't need new levels for each expansion then. You just need the new prestige levels. But it would be one thing or the other, wouldn't it? They'll either just keep adding more on and make it easier to catch up a bit, I suppose. Or they'll just completely scrap it and start again. Or come up with a completely different version of a system. You know, it might well be that the PvP team come up with a different system. I suppose it depends, and I won't know the answer to this, how much PvP players actually like the prestige system. How it works, Felicia, in like Elder Scrolls Online, is you get experience just for doing things like you normally would. But once you get to level cap, level 50 it is in that game, experience also goes into what I've forgotten what they're called now, champion points. And you just go into that. But that's the key thing about that, and Blizzard would never do this with World of Warcraft, is that it's account-wide. So, for example, I have a character in Elder Scrolls Online that's like level 50, you know, got the level cap. I also have a champion level of whatever it is, I don't know. Not very high, because I've not played the game enough. Let's say it goes up to about 600-700 now, if it's mad. Let's say I've got about 150 in that. So I have another character that I'm leveling up. Or I say that, but I haven't played it for months. When I hit level 50 with it, that's all the leveling done, because I don't have to then level the champion points on it. Any experience I do will get those, but I have the same champion level as my main. All the characters on my account have the same champion level. So although with new expansions, they don't really call them expansions, but with their equivalent of expansions, you have, you know, they usually increase the cap on these champion levels. It's all account wide. Do I plan on making any Halloween themed videos? I sometimes do. I mean, because it does tend to occur around about the half-term time, so I might. I also try and do Halloween themed like experiments for my students as well. Unfortunately, on Halloween itself, I'm going to be out of the college in the morning, so there'll only be a couple of classes I can do it for. Last year, sorry, what did I do? I did a few experiments. I made a jack-o'-lantern, but used a glow stick inside rather than a candle. And I did a few other weird experiments as well. The dancing paper ghosts and stuff like that with a bit of static and stuff. Blizz must now be looking at the disjointed storyline while leveling, and very brief zone visits, especially as the cap could go to 120 next expansion. I'm not sure they're bothered about the disjointed storyline. You know, when you've got someone who, whenever they think of a cool story they'd like to do, and someone goes, oh yeah, but I think you'll find that contradicts what we've already said, they don't break sweat at all. They just go, well, we'll change it then. We'll just retcon what happened before. This is the new thing. This is the new thing that always was. And people, I think, set too much store on like the Warcraft Chronicles, because, you know, I'm quite sure they'd happily ignore that. I mean, the fact is that they've written those at a time. They already have. They've said that they've got the next few expansions already planned out storyline-wise, and I believe them. I think they know where they're going with it. But it's just every new storyline, it's going to be a surprise to us, but not to them. And it's going to be basically rewriting several things that we think have been the case before. Which is why I sort of say now, there's no point in me reading or rereading any of the older novels, because you don't know, you know, some bits will not even be canon anymore. And some bits we may think they are at the moment, but that's because Blizzard haven't told us that they've changed it yet. So I think they're purely exist in the here and now, Blizzard. We know that from that Nostalrius thing, don't we? The fact that they didn't want to make the legacy servers. You know, it's because they literally exist in the here and now. It's this expansion, and to hell with everything else. To the point where, I mean, they already make it quite easy to level through. You can even character boost up to the current expansion. You know, they really don't care about how inconvenient or disjointed or anything that the previous stuff is. I am also waiting as well because there's supposed to be some changes coming to a certain trinket. It might not be this week, it might be next reset. But until there's still no new patch for the PTR, until there is a new patch going on the PTR, we won't really be able to see. Because I'm holding off doing a video on the Pantheon trinkets. Because I'm being told that there's going to be a very, very significant change to one of them. So I'm waiting on doing that one now. I don't think they're going to do anything with convergence. The thing is that they sort of don't need to. The trinkets from Antorus are so powerful that they don't. I don't think they really need to muck about with anyone's from previous expansions. Sorry, tiers. Which is why it's so annoying, because if I do have to miss the Wednesday and Thursday, or at least be very late, I mean, in reality, actually thinking about it, it depends how long these things go for. Usually it'll probably mean I'm an hour late. I suppose I missed the first hour of the raid. Might not be a disaster. Well, you say change conversion from 5 to 4. I mean, I think what you mean is ppm, not seconds. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. Reduce it by 4 seconds. Well, I could easily check on that, couldn't I? I could just go into the PTR and see. That would make it, because they already nerfed it into the ground for me anyway. Although ironically it was still sort of okay by Nighthold standards, because the Nighthold trinkets were so bad in general. Whereas the Tomb of Sargeras trinkets have actually been pretty good. Set up a TV webcam in my classroom and Skype into your school event. I think my boss might have something to say about that. No, you should do your physics homework on your own. I had an interesting debate with a student today, though, because he was asking various questions that ended up getting onto matters of the solar system. And just describing the planets, because someone was asking about, you know, planets, because Pluto was downgraded some time ago. So we call those dwarf planets now. And, oh yes, Convergence of Fates has indeed been knocked down to 4 seconds on the PTR. I hadn't noticed that. And, you know, I was going on about that. I said, well, so technically the furthest planet out now is Neptune. And he says, oh, it's a gas giant. I said, yes, it's also a planet. He says, no, it's not a planet, it's a gas giant. And I just turned to him and I said to him, are you seriously arguing with an astrophysicist about the definition of a planet? And he paused for a moment, thought about it and went, oh. I have nothing against dwarfs. I don't know what people have this issue. I have nothing against dwarfs. Just because I don't have any active dwarf characters at the moment is not because I'm opposed to them. I just don't have any. I will have one soon. Well, I'll be making a dwarf priest soon, just for the beginner's guide when I eventually get onto that. I have to be a little bit careful. I need to plan what I need to get done this half term, though. No such thing as known planners. Because there's quite a lot I would like to do. And the natural thing is when you've got a list of things that you'd like to do, but you know you can't do them in a normal working week, you put them off till, like, you know, term break. But I also know there's only so much, I can't do them all in the 1 week off. So I'll have to make sure I plan what I do. Otherwise, I'll end up doing what I did at summer. Summer, I made a right arse of it. I tried to do far too much and ended up not doing anything very well. So I wasted a lot of my time there. Which possibly I'm paying for now. Because that's the only time I really get to do anything fundamentally different on the channel, is when you get time off work. You really need to be, well, ideally full time for this sort of thing. The problem is that Mars is a tricky beast, because if you send people to Mars, there's a very good chance that it would not be sensible to bring them back, and people don't really like the idea of sending people off to die. Also, after the moon land, you've got to bear in mind, within about 10 years, the only reason America sent people to the moon, and the only reason why the Soviet Union, like, put people in orbit, you just had the Soviet Union and the USA competing with each other. It was just an e-peen contest. And as soon as the Soviet Union backed out of it because it got too expensive, there was no one, like, the USA was in a race of one person or one nation. What's the point? It costs a lot of money to send people into space. I was watching some of the panels from BlizzCon 05. From it, they mentioned the idea of life quests during WoW's beta, where you did mission exploring your character's background, like rescuing their father, etc. Decided against it because people having the same stories would have ruined their immersion. Their philosophy has changed a lot over time. There's one particular, and I wish, maybe I'll try and dig it out at some point. There's one particular panel I remember distinctly listening to. Massively different now. But then, you know, it's different people. You would expect that. Do any of my students follow me on YouTube? Unfortunately, yes. I don't think they actually watch my stuff, though. I think they just do it because they're nosy. That's what they're like, these teenagers now. They're all into their social media, so they will instantly search for you. And that's what, when they search for me, that's what will come up. But do I think we'll ever be able to create younger, older looking characters? Well, this is what I mean. I would quite like for them in the next expansion to announce a much greater, although I don't think they will, but I would like them to just massively expand our customization of our characters. And they could tie that in with the idea of sub-races. But although, for me, it seems an obvious thing to do. I don't understand why they don't do it. But they don't do it, for whatever reason. I remember years ago getting items from Rep that helped soak damage in raids. It's the time when there's a trinket players could target that would allow the ability to do the mythic mechanics. There's easy ways to allow for a bring the player, not the class. There are always solutions to every problem. And I don't know why they don't use it. Like, the thing is, at the moment, the reason why it's not bring the player, why it's not, you know, about bring the player rather than class, is because some classes have abilities that allow them to trivialize mythic mechanics. So you've got two options in that situation. Either you give everyone, not just more people, but because then you know, the more people you give these abilities to, the more people you're leaving some out in the cold. So you either give them to everyone in some form, even if you vary it a little bit, or you prevent any of them being useful. Which, you know, they've done both in the past. They've given all melee interrupts. And they've also done the other thing, like my bubble, for example, will not work when you get, or even my stun breaker, when you get stunned by, say, Mistress Azine, when you take more than one Niger shot. They could just do the same. Someone was saying on that video I did about something. I don't know, I did a video recently. But someone was saying they could just make it, which they could. They could just make it so that if there's a soak mechanic, that it's impossible to solo soak it. They could just do that. They could make it so that your ability doesn't work for solo soaking it. Well, there you go then, Kisasha. But, you know, they could easily do that if they wanted to. They just don't care. So you've got legendary cloaks, rings and weapons. Where do I think we'll go next? I dread to think where they'll go next. People keep thinking, especially with what Blizzard have been saying, like, because here's the timeline of legendaries in Legion in terms of issues with them and where it might go in the next expansion. So Blizzard, basically, player base complained, these legendaries are really good, but I don't have them. These legendaries are really crap, and I have them. And it's not fair that I'm having to compete with the people who have the good legendaries. Now, Blizzard instantly saw the problem. We thought we saw the problem. We thought we saw the problem is we have crap legendaries. Why don't we just have good legendaries, even if it's fewer of them? Blizzard saw the problem differently. They thought, it's the good legendaries that are the problem. You know, so they throughput legendaries. So, you know, and there seems to be people now assuming that all they're going to do for legendaries next expansion is get rid of all the throughput ones so that we have legendaries just like Prydar's and Sephir's Secret and all that sort of stuff. And Agrimar's Stride. But then I'm thinking, well, hang on a minute. And that, okay, sure, that fits with what they've said. But the problem is, can you imagine if that's their plan? What's people's reactions going to be if the new legendaries are all utility legendaries? People are not going to be very impressed by that, are they? They'll go mad. So, no, I think they will think of something else, but I don't know what it is. Am I expecting another Stat Squish announcement? I don't think they care. I don't think so. The thing is, when they do a Stat Squish, it takes a lot of work because it's very difficult to do, because it's not like just, you know, reduce everything down by a factor of 100 or something, because then you've got to think of a level 1 character that only does damage in the single figures anyway. It's really difficult to stat squish. And I don't think they're bothered. As long as the computers can handle the numbers, I don't think they care. I think they'll probably just leave it. Well, Blizzard said they might have another one at some point, but I think since I remember them last saying that, I think they've decided that they can handle the bigger numbers. Because I think Ian Hazacosta said, you know, why bother when you can just put a K after something, or an M, or, you know, a G, and just keep increasing the suffixes and stuff like that. I think the issue is with the legendary thing is it reminds me of the cinematic There Must Always Be a Lich King. I think there must always be a legendary in World of Warcraft, because legendaries have been part of the game from day dot for raiding purposes. And I just don't... I think... Do you know what? I think it's like flying. I think the current design team would love it if they could just go back in time, go to the meeting where people were deciding whether or not to have legendaries, and kill all the people that voted yes on legendaries. I'm pretty sure they are wishing that they'd never appeared in the game. But they are in the game, and they're trying to be fair to them, make the best of a feature that they don't want in the game. Now, they haven't said that. We know they don't want flying in the game. They haven't said they don't want legendaries in the game. But I just strongly suspect, because I just see the headaches with it from a design point of view. But they're stuck with it, so they have to come up with a system, don't they? Asmongold made a good point on a recent Allcraft. If we have Titan Forging still in the game, which I think we will, and we get weapon drops again next expansion, the player gap between a base and 55 weapon will be noticeable. Yes, it will. I said this earlier. Excuse me. At the moment, Titan Forge weapons still they exist because we have relics, and relics can Titan Forge. So, I mean, I'm sure Blizzard, if they were pushed on this, would argue you already have Titan Forge weapons because you have relics, but you'd have to be beyond stupidly lucky to get 3 fully Titan Forged relics for your weapon. But you wouldn't have to be, you'd have to be very lucky, but not beyond the bounds of realism to get a 950. Someone in your raid at some point will get a 955 weapon. Like the equivalent of now, if this was in the game now. Whereas there may be a few people in the world, but in the typical raid roster, there are not anyone with 3 955 relics. Kisashi, it doesn't matter whether Blizzard come up with a gameplay reason for no more legendaries. They have to put legendaries in. They won't even dare to not. Won't even dare. They tried taking a core feature of the game in flying, didn't they? And that went badly. So it's the way already. Wolfpack. Oh, split across 3 items here. Yeah, that's the thing. You've got a sort of buffer with the current relic system, in that you're not gonna get the very, very good or bad luck with 3 relics, or the chances are, because it's not just 3 times less likely, it's exponentially more. So it's like you turn it into a couple of people in your raid having the top level weapon to a few people in the world. So I mentioned this on another Tuesday talk, but they really need to do something about the number of levels. Yes, I don't like it, but again, Blizzard haven't said that they've got an issue with it. And it would be a massive change to the game, although not unprecedented if they were to change it. Well, unprecedented in WoW, but not unprecedented in MMOs. It doesn't surprise me that 110 levels puts your friends off joining WoW. It's what I think about all the time. Obviously, it's not a problem for me, but I think about all the time new players. Like, if I were to come across a game and think, all right, I know the game's been out a while, but usually the way with MMOs is the older content is largely irrelevant. Just level through it, get yourself to the new content, bosh, job done. But then you look at the number of levels, and it's all right saying, well, you get a free character boost. Well, that's fine. I might want more than one character. And it's all right saying you get to boost it, see if you like it for a bit, and then, change your mind. Well, I don't know how long you actually get with that try and see thing, but sometimes you need a couple of months to see if you're going to like a character or not, and then you want to change it. No, it's far too messy. Just the sheer number of levels is mad, absolutely mad. By definition, a legendary should be very scarce and very, very powerful. It should, but the problem is that all the players in the game are supposed to be this great hero of Azeroth. So there is where you run into a problem with an MMO. If you ever make zone scale to your level, surely a stat squish can't be hard for the developers. I think it's more time consuming. Well, I think it is hard, actually. But I think it's more the time it would take. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know whether they want to do it. All I know is I'm pretty sure that Ian Hazacosta said that he did not see an issue with larger numbers, because you can just... I mean, it would be a problem if this number of significant figures kept increasing. But if you just keep it at roughly the same number of significant figures and just put a different letter on the end to denote how much it is, like thousands, millions, thousand millions, blah, 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 then, he doesn't seem to have an issue with it. You do only get it if you buy the latest expansion, yes. But, yes, that is true. And I don't know how many new players would just get the basic version of the game to try it out first and then get the expansion or not. I mean, if it's someone like me, I would just get the whole lot. But then that's just me. That's not necessarily the typical player. You get 8 hours to decide. That's nothing, is it? You can spend 8 hours in a queue for LFR. What's that? Oh yeah, you got to get an artifact weapon first. That's the point. Yeah, you can't even try LFR out. Yeah, that's a good point. Sorry, yeah, you'd be level 100, wouldn't you? Get to do nothing. Artifact weapon. Well, you'd have to sit there. I mean, that's getting all the spells in the right place, and as a new player having no idea what they mean. When you've done that, do the artifact quest, die a lot because you don't know what these spells do, and then go to Val'sharah for a bit. Done. Tells you nothing. I mean, you could be put off by a character because you've suddenly got all these spells, you don't know what they do, and you just think, no, this isn't for me. Well, it might be. It's just you don't know what these abilities do. I don't know. It just seems a bit dreadful for a new player for me. But you do get the odd new player coming in. Oh, you're not allowed to do anything, is what? Oh, I didn't realise that. Oh. So the artifact weapon that's it, is it? Right. That seems unfortunate. Huh. Well, I mean, it's all. Well, I remember in WoD, because when they first brought in the character boost thing, so you used your character boost, and it would force you into a particular spec, and it would also only give you so many spells, and you got other spells as quest rewards. Now the problem is with that is I was someone who, when I first used my first character boost, I'd already leveled up all the classes, at least one of each class, to 100. So I sort of knew all of them to a reasonable standard. So I used a character boost on something, I can't remember what. And I actually found it tough going. As someone who sort of knew what the abilities did, because I didn't have the abilities I wanted. And I actually found it tough. So I thought a new player is going to be in real trouble here. So it's like you can understand it. Like, it's not good to just suddenly get a load of new spells, but at the same time you can't just portion them out either, because the content you're doing when you've been boosted up is intended for people who have the full complement of spells and talents for that level, and you're not letting them have those spells. So I don't know, but yeah, the start, I mean, and I would have thought any company that wanted to think long term about a game would address the issue of the new player experience. I would put a whole team onto it, and this doesn't sound like they give it any. I mean, someone was suggesting, I don't know where they got it from or whether it's just speculation, that Blizzard wants to try and retain players rather than get new ones, but that to me just seems silly. Because apart from anything else, I go back to what I was talking about at the start of this stream. You get some people as they get older can't play World of Warcraft because, you know, domesticity chains them. So you need new players. The big problem with the fast escalating item level is that your damage and health gets super huge at the end of an expansion compared to the start, making new players feel weak. Yes, this is another issue. New players join in late on an expansion. Absolutely, because a new player now dinging and being encouraged to go to Argus is going to get their head kicked in. Well, I mean, Blizzard would presumably know how many new players. There are some new players. You can only speak anecdotally. Like, in fact, I remember because we don't. You know, whenever you see a blue response on a European post, it's usually something vaguely pointless. But there was one I remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week, of someone just going, oh, I've just started playing this game. It's fantastic. Blah blah blah. They usually reply to those ones. They don't reply to any awkward questions. They do reply to those ones. So you're getting some new players, but maybe not that many. Not sure if it was a dev or content creator, but I remember someone saying, everyone has tried WoW who was ever interested. What a pointless thing to say. What about people who weren't old enough to have their own PC or something like that? What a dozy thing to say. It's also a fairly arrogant thing to say, to sort of suggest that people would naturally have, there's plenty of people that have played other MMOs and not wanting to play WoW. I mean, who would blame them for a start? Because if you start playing, it doesn't take long. You play almost any MMO, it does not seem to take long, in my experience anyway. If you're there for a couple of hours, at some point, especially if it's a new game, but it almost doesn't matter, in trade or general chat or something like that, someone at some point will start talking about WoW. And they usually talk about it in less than charitable terms as well. Because it's usually those players who've not got on in WoW, and then they go to this other game and they go, oh, this is fantastic, this is much better than WoW. WoW is rubbish now, WoW is dead. So naturally, anyone who's going into an MMO for the first time that's not WoW will get a very dim view of World of Warcraft because everyone's slagging it off. But Blizz doesn't seem to market WoW only around new expansion time. See, I wouldn't necessarily even pay attention to how well they market it or not. But again, if that's true, yeah, it is a bit of an indicator that they're not bothered about getting people in. In a few years, indeed, Manav, there will be people, if they're indeed, well, maybe already are, hold on. When did it come out? In America, it came out 13 years ago, didn't it? So, yeah, they only have to be just a teenager, and that's sort of the case. But in a few years' time, late teens, certainly, yeah. Did a lot of adverts during 7.3, did they? Again, it could be argued with their advertising campaigns, are they advertising for new players or are they just advertising to get returning players? Maybe that I think they set more store against about getting players returning rather than joining it for the first time. The Night Elf Mohawk, Mr. T, yeah. Hold on, when were those adverts? Those adverts were before Kata, surely. Wasn't it TBC and Mop? Those adverts were out. Maybe even a bit before. Can't remember. I quite liked all of those adverts, actually. But yeah, the Mr. T one was quite good. You were 3 when WoW came out. Hang on. Right. Warcraft 3 was out quite a bit before WoW, surely. Well, I mean, Gajoy, you say you've been in your job for 35 years to get apprentices in the job longer than you've been alive. I mean, I now have students whose parents, well, I have for a few years, I suppose, whose parents are my age. It's like, not young anymore. So I'm of their parents' generation. Whereas when I first started teaching, I was not actually that dissimilar to the age of my students. What do I make of the Warcraft Mobile RTS rumours? I don't think there'll be rumours. I think it makes sense. Ever since I started seeing some big name MMOs appearing on mobile, I have thought it inevitable that Blizzard would follow suit. You can understand it for the mobile market. It's a big market, worth a lot of money. I don't know in development costs if it's anywhere near as much. Maybe it's also much cheaper as well. Maybe it has lower costs, higher profit. A bit like opening an Italian restaurant, because pasta costs nothing to make and people will pay a fortune for it because, oh, it's Italian, isn't it? It might be the same sort of thing with mobile games. So I think they will. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're planning on abandoning the PC, but I can see them making an MMO for mobile. Based around what game, I don't know. I would have thought it makes more sense to base it around something they haven't done much of at the moment, say Diablo or StarCraft. But who knows? Lots of money in labour. It doesn't cost that much in labour. It's pasta. It takes a bit of practice to do it, granted. But it doesn't. You just watch these pasta chefs go. They do it really quickly. And they charge as much as like a big old steak, which actually costs quite a lot in material. And I don't think a pasta chef costs any more than any other type of chef. I strongly suspect that in most Italian restaurants in this country, apart from the very high class ones, the pasta is probably not even freshly made on the premises. And judging by Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, it's probably not in America either. But I don't know. But as I say, when you do see them actually the ones doing it, making it properly, it doesn't take long. It takes no time. My WoW cook, I haven't done any WoW, the cookbook ones for ages. I did do 2 videos at the start of the year. I was going to do one every 2 weeks and then just shift down the priority list. Get shoved down the priority list. Because it actually takes quite a long time just to set up the camera and the lights and stuff to record what I'm actually making. Oh, well, there you go. I don't even like pasta, so I'm not a huge expert. I would never try and make it myself because I don't like it. It's one of those things. It's a bit like hollandaise sauce. I've never really tried making hollandaise sauce because I don't like it. So I wouldn't actually know whether I'd made it right. So I wouldn't even try making it for someone new. Is this... No, I haven't got... Well, it's not a new light set. My light setup's fine now. The lights I have, which I've had these since before summer, they're fine. It's the microphone that's supposed to be different. Oh, the new light setup. No, right. The new light setup I did. There's one here, but it's not on at the moment. When I'm streaming, these 2 are fine. The problem is when I'm doing videos. Well, there's a little bits here, but that can't be helped. When I'm doing videos, though, the lights at the moment are cutting right across me because that works on the green screen when I'm streaming. But when I need to record something and put it in my video editor, if I have the lights across me, it doesn't work. So I have to angle the lights across my shoulders onto the screen itself. And then there's no light on the front of my face, so it looks in shadow. So I have another light here. I don't know how effective it is, but because I haven't tried it enough. Just one of those. Just an LED light. And so that's what I've tried using for that, but I don't know whether it's actually making it any better or not. And I've now got another editing program, which I haven't used yet, but I will do. I've gone back to a Sony Vegas, or I will do this half term, because I was having terrible trouble with Adobe Premiere Elements. It's got some nice features in it, and I won't really like having to learn how to use a new one. But, oh, hi, McConnell. But it's too unstable. Like last weekend, not the weekend just gone, but the previous weekend, I lost hours and hours because it kept crashing. Just constantly crashing. But tonight shouldn't be any different because these lights are the ones I've been using for ages now. For streaming, but not for... Like, I don't... When I'm streaming games, I don't always have these ones onto the side of me. Because if there's a little bit of funniness going in the background, it's not that much of a problem. Stream. But for doing this, I do try to just do that. I hope... Also, no one's mentioned this, but I hope people have noticed there's not only a new background, but that the background, after someone put something out last week, goes all the way across the screen. There's no little black bar down one side. And I've gone for an old gods themed thing in preparation for what I think the announcement will be on. But we shall see. I shall hastily remove it if it all turns out to be wrong. But I don't think it will be. It is void themed, yes. I went to... I've forgotten what it's called now. Twilight Highlands, isn't it? It's really just the Sarlacc from Return of the Jedi, isn't it? Except with extra tentacles. Oh dear. But yeah, it's thoughts on Starship Troopers. I don't know what Starship Troopers is. I have had no luck with installing it, and I haven't, well, you say haven't had time, it's one of those things. Obviously, in the time since I've got this new computer, I have had time to set up my other computer and to try and get it off onto a hard drive and copy it across, but I haven't felt it's been worth the time. I don't know what my favourite mount is, it sort of changes. From time, I've always liked my Paladin charger mount. So I quite like that. I've never seen Starship Troopers in that case. Flying mount, I'm using the Warframe at the moment. So I've gone back to a gold transmogs. I've gone back to my Lightbringer transmog, which is quite nice for the Warframe. The virtual ticket mount is very nice. And I did use that for a little bit with my Stormwind transmog. But then when I got the Warframe, it was back to the Warframe. I may, for BlizzCon week, go back to the to that mount and put my Stormwind transmog back on, my Stormwind Guard transmog. I have seen the new Star Wars trailer, yes. That has already come up, yeah. But as I say, these sort of things are just designed to... like throw you googlies basically. They don't want you to realise what's going on. They're going to try and surprise you, so they'll be deliberately misleading in it, I have no doubt, because there's all sorts of things about it you're not quite sure. Like, you could take some scenes to think that Kylo Ren is going to move away from the dark side, or you could take some scenes to think that the girl, Daisy Ridley, I've forgotten her character's name now, that's silly, is going to join the dark side. And then you've got Luke talking about, the only thing I know is that the Jedi have to, like, end. And then you're going, what the hell's that about? So, I don't know. Oh, crap. Alright. Alright then. Well, I mean, the trailer's the trailer. And you can be sure of one thing. The trailer will not give out any plot details. Anything that people imagine that it tells you, it doesn't. Apart from anything else, in a trailer, you can have scenes in there that are not in the film. You know, they don't make because trailers, the way trailers used to be made decades ago, it was clips of the film intended to entice you into the film. Nowadays, the trailers, you can shoot scenes specifically for the trailers now. So you'll get scenes in trailers that may not even be part of the film and may never have intended to be part of the film. They exist as like a short film in their own right, just to get you to go and watch the film. So I'm quite sure they're not giving away any plot details. So yeah, there's a couple of times when I've thought, oh yeah, and then I've thought, no, they're stringing me along here. They're playing. The only thing I'm certain of in that trailer is that there's going to be a new fluffy toy coming out this Christmas that looks like a cross between a piranha and a guinea pig, basically, with big eyes. Let me find it. Hang on, let's find a picture of it. I can't remember what it was called. Oh, hold on. This is it, I think. Oh, that doesn't look like a very good one. Let's try and find a better photo of the one I'm talking about. Photo of the creature under Trump's hair. That's not the one I'm looking at. There it is. Right. Have I ever tried making a WoW machinima? No. I think that would be a massive amount of time required to do that as a beginner. I think it must take enough time as someone who's experienced. Without me, you know, I imagine as a beginner, it's got to be the sort of amount of time that must be required to be immense. Right, here it is. Look at that thing. That is a guinea pig and a piranha's love child, isn't it? Out of all the rumours on the next expansion, which one or ones do you look back at now and think are unlikely? I don't know. List some rumours. I don't always keep rumours. What is that? That is Chewbacca's new friend, I gather, in Star Wars. I mean, that, I think, there, that fuzzy brown thing in the background is Chewbacca. But I'll tell you what it is. They've stuck that in the film for one reason and one reason only. To sell plush novelties at Christmas. That's what that's for. Looks terrifying. But terrifyingly cute, so it will sell. They always do this. This is why Jar Jar Binks existed, to sell toys. Never forget that. This is like the new Jar Jar Binks, I bet you. That's what it's for. That's all it is for. You wouldn't put something like that into the film were it not for thinking about marketing toys afterwards. They didn't feel the need to do this in the early days, even though George Lucas was very much about the marketing. But Disney, oh my goodness, there's a different matter. As soon as it's in Disney's hands, that's it. I imagine the actual toy will have its mouth closed and look rather less alarmed. This is probably it on a spaceship for the first time, absolutely crapping itself. I don't know the context of this image. But it would not surprise me if this is its first flight on the Millennium Falcon. Maybe Chewbacca rescues it from a doomed planet or something, I don't know. Our Jar Jar was not fun. He was many things. Fun was not one of them. But anyway, yes, you'll have to list a few rumours, Fraser, if you want me to sort of think which ones I think are unlikely, because I don't really think about rumours unless there's something in them, so I don't keep them in my head. I don't actually know what the rumours are as such, apart from the ones that I think are true. Those I do keep in my head. The prequels also had R2-D2. That was a big mistake in my view, having C-3PO and R2-D2. You didn't need them. You didn't need to put those in. It's probably going to be a race now with the 9th film to get it. You know, if they insist on having some people in it that have been in all the films, like Anthony Daniels, I suppose now. It's you know, without being sounding nasty here about poor old Carrie Fisher, it must be a race to get the 9th film done before more of them start popping their clogs, because even though she wasn't very old, some of them are. Some of them are quite old now. I mean, Harrison Ford wanted to be killed off, so that solved that problem. Mark Hamill, I don't know. He was quite young. He was the same, so he's not that old now, is he? About 60-ish. But I don't know how old Anthony Daniels must be. Although I suppose it wouldn't be very difficult to replace him. They just have to find someone to do the voice. The 3rd movie had good things in it. The 2nd movie had an awful lot of very bad things in it. Mark Hamill, I loves it. I mean, when Return of the Jedi finished, he did actually get quite a lot of work after it, voicing usually his own character in there was a lot of Star Wars games, and that he was in. Then obviously went off to become the Joker, which he did quite well in as well. So, you know, he seems to have done pretty well. But yeah, he's made you know, he had a lot of work after Return of the Jedi, still in the Star Wars universe, so to speak, playing himself in games, voice acting, essentially. So I don't think he would consciously bow out. But have I ever, or will I ever try RP? Only ever semi-RP, like Dungeons and Dragons. I did a bit, but even then, not full on. I did some live action roleplay when I was at university as well. Which was alright. That was quite good. In fact, there was a cracking bit in the finale. The first weekend I did of this live action roleplay was like this. You in teams of skirmishers. In fact, I had a few funny stories from it, but the best one where we won. We actually won. The aim was there were certain objectives with flags that the more of them you'd captured at the end of this battle royale, the better you did. And they were basically located within a building. Now there's certain places that are designated as off limits, but we noticed, and it was probably an oversight on the part of the organizer, they hadn't designated the bathroom as off limits. And we sneaked round the back of it, because you're all starting different places, and then you just sort of sneak round. We sneaked round the back of it and noticed there was a window open, as there often is in like bathrooms and stuff like that, in like public build, well, not public building, but you know, this chalet thing. So we basically sneaked in there, hid in the bathroom, because everyone else would just think they'd have to come in through the main door. So the first team through held like that, and they just battled over the main hall in there, and we were just hiding in this bathroom, letting everyone else take themselves out. And then 5 minutes before the end, we just rushed out and charged the group that was in there, who got absolutely mullered by us, and we won. We just took everything. What's been the most difficult raid boss in WoW I've killed? It would always be, because you can't really judge it in terms of the boss. It would always depend on like the group you were with that did it, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, Muru, in terms of its reputation, is probably got to be one of the most difficult that I've done. But then it's difficult to judge because, for example, when I killed Muru, I was in a much better guild than I've been in since I came back to the game in Late Cataclysm, say. So there'll be bosses that's taken me longer to kill than Muru did. I'm not really sure. I mean, kill Jaden probably is going to be my... But I haven't killed it. So I don't know. Ah, they know that. They know they're still, you know, cutting edge guilds at the end of the day. I mean, we sort of know we're not top 70. But I don't know whether top 70 back in TBC is the same as top 70 now either. I don't know. But we're a lot more serious. I mean, you know, some of the things we do in our guild now, it's a lot more casual than it was then. I mean, if we have, you know, you wouldn't have, for example, people who turn up late, or people who are not back on time after the break, or people who haven't farmed all their consumables. These, I mean, obviously there was no AP then, but, you know, anything that you had to do, you know, to help out in the raid, if you hadn't done it, that would not be acceptable. You would not be in the raid, you know. Like if we wanted, say, like now I'm struggling to find a rogue. I'm desperate to find a rogue. You know, back then, if we needed a rogue, we would go out and find a rogue, and a good one as well. How often do I generally change skills during an expansion? I try not to at all. I don't change guilds because I feel like a change or something like that. I only ever change... Like, there's one thing that I want to do, and that is to raid. And raid cutting-edge content. We don't really need hunters. We're not, like, opposed to super brilliant ones. But... what we are after, we're after a rogue. We're after a tank. And we're sort of after a warlock now. I mean, a really good hunter we could use, because good hunters are always useful. But I think people in general are a bit more serious about it, the raiding then as well. Whereas now, because I mean then, I mean it was very common to raid. I mean obviously super hardcore guilds have always existed. Although even then the super hardcore guilds now are still way more hardcore than they were 10 years ago. But, you know, the average decent guild would raid 5 nights a week, definitely, in TBC. Now, very uncommon to find that, you know, 4, 3, even we do 3, even 2 night and proper 2. Because sometimes you'll talk about a guild will say they're a 2-night guild or 2-day guild. But, you know, they actually raid ridiculous number of hours on those. But there are some very genuinely 2-night, like 8 hours a week raiding guilds that do very well. Well, I mean, what I would say is people really, when they're applying to a guild, need to look at the roster of the guild they're applying to, assuming their logs are not private. Because I've had, you know, we've had people apply, and you look at the numbers, you think, well, you are not competing with even the worst of our DPS. So, you know, you have to look at that if you get that option. You look at someone's roster and think to yourself, you know, would I push any of these onto the bench? And if the answer is no. Although we had someone do the opposite way around a few weeks ago, it was quite funny. To anyone, I don't know what anyone's logs look like, but you need to look at the logs of the guilds you look at. But there was a few weeks ago where someone who was going to join us decided not to, and we were sort of saying, why is that? And it was quite hilarious, the stupidity of the answer. They were saying it's because I was looking at some of your players. Some of your players are really bad, and when we asked them, hi Cliffado, we asked them to name them. One of them was my rogue. And I'm thinking, it was my crap rogue that was in to get a bit of gear off some mythic bosses in the in anticipation of potentially having to do Fallen Avatar. So I was thinking, yeah, okay. I mean, the main thing about joining a raiding guild is, of course, you're sort of committing to a certain amount of, you know, time raiding, obviously. I'm going to move that thing down there. Because, like, I mean, I'm going to feel bad at the moment because I'm going to miss sometime tomorrow. I'm missing most of the raid tomorrow. There's 2 days when I'm going to miss Wednesday and Thursday consecutively. There's like half a dozen days in the year, but as I say, there's a high proportion of them that take place round winter time. It's really annoying. So they put them. So October and November, I will actually miss several raids. The Unstoppable Force, wasn't that a weapon from Alterac Valley in vanilla? And then the immovable object was a shield, I think. Oh, you did your artifact challenge, did you, Gratz? I still haven't done the protection one. I may... Well, I don't know. I might do that at Christmas. I'll have time. And there won't be... You always get a bit of a dip on YouTube at Christmas time. So I'll probably spend a bit of that doing... whereas I have loads of time spare, so... I'll probably do my protection one for the transmog and then. I'm not sure. I think in the case of vanilla, when the Unstoppable Force met the immovable object, very often the immovable object won. Because all you have to do is be immovable for a little bit, and then all of a sudden you've got your friends to go up and mug them. What about holy? I'm not. Why would I do the holy artifact? I don't like the holy weapon. I like the protection weapon. It's a nice, like, Morning Star type thing. That looks good. The holy weapon does not. So unless I get exceptionally bored later on in Legion, I'm unlikely to do any that I don't specifically want the transmog of. I don't know why the shield or one-hander won't ever be. We're not going to have artifact weapons in the next one. For completeness, I'm not interested in completeness. Have you seen how many achievement points I have? It's not very many. I'm not a completionist. I do the content that I want to do at the time. Yes, it does. I mean, that's one thing I won't miss from about artifact weapons. The fact that, yeah, if I was holy, I would not be at all happy with having to use what I'd use now, because I want a shield. I don't want a book. I want a shield in my other hand. I remember in vanilla sometimes you would get paladins who would use an offhand, like a caster offhand, which technically was quite good, and you didn't really need your shield a lot of the time. But no, I used the shield. I didn't care. So I used the shield from Moradin, I think, for quite a long time. What was the next one I got? I can't remember. But certainly the one you wanted was for quite... The one off Philastris in TBC. I had that for a long, long time. And then I got Death's Bargain from Nax. Which is still something that I don't think they've ever used the skin for on anything else. So it's a pretty unique skin. But it's one of the things... I do have a nostalgia-based video saved up for when I get to 15k subscribers, although that's taking a bloody long time at the moment. But I healed, yeah. Well, vanilla was really weird. I did heal, but it was like I started off healing as Ret because you needed some Rets so that you could get Blessing of Kings. So I did that, and that was me buffing 40 people every 5 minutes. I mean, you still did get a chance to heal. It's actually quite weird how you could actually still do quite a lot of healing while keeping 40 blessings on people every 5 minutes. It was spectacular. I don't know how I did it, or how anyone else did it, quite frankly, but somehow we managed it. And then I healed in TBC, but go into Rets occasionally, and then eventually just went completely Rets halfway through TBC. No, I didn't use Pally. No, Pally... Hang on. No, there wasn't... Pally Power wasn't there. Well, it might have been in vanilla when they changed the blessings. They had this stupid add-on, though, called Buff Ahoy. But all it was just a say macro that went, come to me and get your buffs. Well, no one's going to do that in the middle of a fight. It's your job to go around and buff people, not their job to gather round you and get buffed. That was just silly. Yeah, but like part way through in vanilla, they stopped because blessings used to be there were individual players and they lasted for 5 minutes. Then they brought in the blessings. They lasted for they brought in greater blessings. They either lasted for 10 or 15 minutes. I forget now. But the key thing is when you put them on a player, it also buffed every other player of the same class. So then you just had to do 8 times for each class, and then eventually, long time after, they eventually just did it for the whole raid. But that was a long time after. Am I excited about BlizzCon? I am fairly excited, yes. But I have a bit of trepidation about the whole thing with BlizzCon, because what is supposed to follow BlizzCon, and I don't know when, but at some point what should follow BlizzCon, I'm going to get a drink, is announcement of when the alpha for the new expansion is the open part of the alpha is going out, where of course they invite all the big streamers and people to go on first of all. And then there'll be a second wave, which is just randomly determined people, where in the last one I was in, so I got in quite early on. I got into the alpha in like the December 2015. Late on December. But I don't know whether I would get in early. Obviously, now that I have a channel, it would be quite awkward not to get in early on this time. But I'm not big enough to automatically get early on. The reagents were inexpensive. I mean, yeah, they had a cost to them. The Symbol of Kings, they were all right, though. Trivia bot add-on, I used to like that. I never had it, but if anyone was doing it, usually outside the bank in Stormwind, I would go and have a little play with it. Yeah, I loved that. Do I think my channel's next big jump in subs will come around rep videos for next expansion? I don't know. Yeah, the subs thing, it has... 2017, it's actually been a bit of a crawl. There is one thing that I may have been doing wrong that I only just realised. It's too late to do anything about it now, other than to stop doing it wrong. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I need to spend some time on this half term is just to sit down and think. There's a few things I've thought about that can maybe be optimised. I do need to properly sit down and think, what am I doing here? But if I knew what the next big sub jump was going to be down to, I would just do that thing. It's natural to think that maybe if I did get in on early alpha, that would be a potential source of it. That being said, I strongly suspect not. Like the rep videos, obviously I mean, I've now started to do them every week anyway, just to keep touch base. But anything else to do with Legion, other people will be doing as well, anyway. And although not everyone will be doing the ret stuff, there's only so many Retribution Paladins, even though they're a fairly popular spec. I don't know. I don't know what they're like. You've got to think about it this way. There's alpha serves 2 purposes. One, it is for testing purposes, but 2, it's for marketing purposes. So the initial tranche of people who get in are the ones that, you know, the big YouTubers and streamers. I am not going to do them any favours on a marketing point of view, not because I'm going to slag it off or anything, but just because I'm not getting it to as many people. And since the last expansion, there have been there are loads of WoW YouTubers that are actually properly big, like loads of them. I mean, it's not just your usual suspects, like obviously Preach, Balula, Az is no longer going, Asmongold though, Novel. I mean, those are what I would call the big four. But there's a whole host of really big ones as well that have appeared since the last expansion. So, I don't know. Yeah, but it's not just about raiding. Most big YouTubers are probably not actually terrible raiders. It's probably just they don't have the time for it. Because if you're full-time into YouTube... Although I'll tell you something I don't get, as we've sort of come to the end now. I'll chat about this for a bit anyway. One thing I don't understand. So someone said something to me a few weeks ago. I'd never thought about it before, and I'm thinking about it now. And they've said that you do too many videos. I thought, that seems a bit strange. But here's the thing. I think to myself, okay, so I do... If you work it out over the course of a month, it usually works out at roughly one a day. I don't do a video every day. But in terms of working out how many I do over the course of the month, because some days I do more than one and some days I don't do any. But it's usually about one a day, on average, about 30 a month. And 30, so you think 30 a month. The big YouTubers do not do that. And I think to myself, so I'm doing that around work. Now, if I was full-time, obviously production values on the big ones are better as well. You know, I do cut corners, has to be said, to be able to do it in the time. But still, there must be a reason why when they're full-time, they actually, most of them don't do very many. They only do like a few. Sometimes as few as 3 a week, if that. And I know that they'll spend quite a lot of time streaming. But what I'm curious is that there is no... And when I say big YouTube, I'm not just talking about the big four. I mean, I'm also included those who are on round about 100,000 as well. I don't really see anyone that does as many as I do. So it is a weird thing, though. I'm not going to suddenly stop doing them. If I have time to do videos, I will still do videos. But I find it curious. And I'm not really sure of the reason for it. But it is curious that they, who must know what they're doing, only do a few. But, I mean, we'll see anyway. I mean, I don't know when we'll see. I mean, last time round, BlizzCon was whenever BlizzCon is, and they started releasing the open alpha. It was either... It was either very late November or early December. Because I remember it came out, and I wasn't in the first lot, obviously. But then within 2 or 3 weeks I was. Just coincidentally. No, to listen and Everton will definitely. As soon as you're over 100,000, as far as I'm concerned, you're a big WoW YouTuber. And in fact, they are one of the ones I am referring to when I say there have been new people appear since the last expansion. So if there is a list of people that they're going to invite to early alpha, they have moved onto the list. I am not on the list, really. That Sephiroth, that is another issue that I've been wrapping my head around. If it does come out in December, this alpha, which would tie in with when it came out last time. The thing is, though, last time we didn't get the reveal at BlizzCon, did we? We already knew about the expansion at BlizzCon. We just got more details at BlizzCon, if I remember correctly. I think it had already been announced at like Gamescom or something. Can't remember though. I'm pretty sure that was the case. So it might actually be that the alpha doesn't, the open alpha part where they drop the NDA, doesn't actually go out until subs is not the. Don't need subs. I don't think they care about how many subs you've got. I think it more cares about what your reach is, whether people know you. I forgot what I was saying now. Yeah, so it might be in the new year when it comes out anyway. I don't know. we'll just have to see. But yeah, I have thought about this. So it's not like when the last expansions, Alf, when I got into that, I could spend quite a lot of time in it because progress was done. We were raiding one night a week. That was it. Rest of the night, go raid one night a week for a few hours. Off we go for the rest of the week. This time round, we'll be raiding progress. We'll be doing Antorus. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the 20 to 40 minute videos because it allows me to not have to worry about the time when I want to talk about something. Some people like the very short videos. Occasionally I do one that, you know, I keep thinking I should. Then I don't know, like, you sort of know that there's a whole load of people who will not listen to like a half-hour video. They might listen to a 5-minute one, and then they might watch another 5-minute one after it, and so on. And you think, well, do I do one 5-minute one a week? And if you do that, it's like, well, then there might not be enough of those each week, so there's no point. And I'm not just going to deliberately make things 5 minutes, because then that means I can't talk in detail about some things that I want to do. I don't think I'm not gonna radically change the content I'm doing at the moment, but I'm more interested in this half term thinking about like peripheral things, such as the one thing I think I may have been doing wrong recently was when I got my new computer. My old computer, I had TubeBuddy on it, and that has a few features on it which can help you optimize tags and stuff like that. And then I switched to the new computer, and then for whatever reason I didn't copy it on. And I just suddenly thought about it recently, and I thought, oh yeah. So I've just started using it again, literally Sunday. And so, you know, we'll just see how that works out. Hold on, I'm missing stuff now, am I? Can you imagine if I had over 1k viewers on Twitch right now? Yeah, well, this is the problem, isn't it? You have to go through these things. Like, you go through various phases, like with YouTube, for example. So, obviously, when I started, I had very few people viewing the videos. And literally, you would get 1 or 2 people replying. So, that meant you could not only read every comment, you could respond to every... If it was a comment that warranted a response, you could respond to it. It wasn't that much time. Then you move to a point where you can't respond to everyone's, but you can still read everyone's. Then you move to a point where you can't either read or respond to everyone's. And you go through all these cycles. And then it'll be the same on Twitch. You'd get to a situation where, you know, you can afford many more viewers than us viewing this. Certainly loads more. Because most people don't say anything anyway. But at a certain point, there'll come a point where, because you see it, don't you, on when World of Warcraft streams something, their comments page goes mental. So there obviously at some point has to come a time when you go, look, the chat is pointless if everyone's spamming it. So then you have to just have it for like subscribers or something. But that's, you know, when you have got ridiculous, that's when it's flying. And you can't actually read anything on it. And yes, you would have to also have some chat moderators. Well, sometimes I'm not sure people always want balanced facts. I think they want outrage. It was quite funny though. Sometimes I get the, because you know, if I'm not happy about something, I will say so. And I had someone put a comment on a video. What was I moaning about? Probably the Neverlight Crucible. That's the main thing to moan about at the moment. I can't remember what it was. And pretty sure it was though. And he said, "Oh, I see you've taken over from Az as the person who just whines about Warcraft." And I wanted to respond, but there's no point responding to something like that. I just thought to myself, can you pick out for me the last video where I actually complained about something in Warcraft? Because they would probably have had to go back a month. Where I'll have heard, it's like, ooh, 1 out of 30 videos I complain about something. Yeah, I'm not gonna like present something in a different way just to try and get more viewers. Though I present things in the way that I actually see it. Well, what's probably happened in that particular person's case is probably watched that one video and it's gone, oh, he's moaning about something. That must be what he does in all his videos. Without actually checking them out. I don't even think Az did complain a lot anyway. Like, people seem to have this sort of view of him. I think he did towards the end, because clearly towards the end he was not enjoying playing the game. But I don't think it was a real feature of his. I guess a voice modulator put a girl in front of the camera. Or a blow-up girl. Is Raidbots a good resource to use to see if lower item levels for Nightholes? Yes, it is. It's not that hard to use Raidbots either. In fact, the benefit of... because Raidbots is basically Simcraft, but with an easier to use UI. I mean, I use it for my quick gear compares now because it's quicker to use than Simcraft. In fact, I have now gone back to my 2... I had got rid of my 2Ps tier 19 and 4 set tier 20, and I was like thinking, oh, I'm free again. And then when we did Nighthold, last time we did Nighthold, Elasan dropped the... Now, I had been rolling on the tier Helm because it's got ideal stats for me, and to try and Titan Forge, and it never Titan Forged. So I eventually, you know, they were saying, does anyone want this? No one wanted it. And they were asking me because I'd always wanted it before. And I said, no, I can't be asked anymore, not bothering. And he said, here, have it, use it. So I clicked on it and it rolled 930. So I thought, oh, crap. So I simmed it. And to be honest, it's not that it's like an upgrade as such. It's just that because I only have one piece of 930 tier 19, if I had another piece, then it'd be really good then. But that's not very likely to happen because the only bosses we killed are Elasan and Gul'dan. Gul'dan drops the legs. I'm not using tier 19 legs. So, but it was worth the same, and I thought, well, I actually quite like the tier 19, so I've gone back to it. Ask Mr. Robot is not accurate though. I mean, Simcraft is not perfect. I still have a video to do on Sims, actually, which may be this weekend if I get time, because Blizzard have been saying a few things about that as well that I want to address. Well, this is it about, yeah, you're quite right, man. The way people are nowadays, any legitimate criticism of something someone likes is seen as a personal attack. It can be, yeah. Well, you get this issue, don't you? Because you've got 3 types of people who will comment on anything on the internet or in life or anything. So you have your white knights, which are basically people who will always defend something come what may without even thinking about it. You have your trolls who will always attack something come what may, no matter what they think about it, assuming they ever do think. And then you have everyone else in the middle who just says what they think. And one day they may like something and another day they may not. But they're just giving their honest opinion. And the problem is distinguishing between these people. So if, like, for example, I know Wowhead often get it in the neck for being like white knights as such. So sometimes when they say something praiseworthy, you sort of, a lot of people will think to themselves, are you just saying that because you believe it? Or are you saying it because you're very pally with Blizzard? And you get it the other way around. If you get like if you find yourself criticizing something a lot, people might think you're a troll. It's like, well, you're just saying that because that's just how you are now. Paladins are not white knights. If anything, we're gold knights. I don't think there's ever been a white transmog set. There was a greyish one, wasn't there, in like Mop? Was there? Christy Golden, I gather, has joined Blizzard as a full-time employee, yes. So we assume that there's going to be some more emphasis given to those sort of stories. Well, Jane is coming back for a start. I do remember the Weekly Marmot. Yeah. Yes, I used to watch that. Not every week, but I used to watch that quite a bit. Well, there's a lot of people who have gone to work for Blizzard from being a part of the community. Now, in the case of Law, I give him a little bit more credit than some people do, because he's employed there as a community manager, as a PR guy. Now, as a PR guy, he is supposed to, of course, back up his company, come what may. But Ian Hazakostas, I mean, I did a video once and was roundly rebuffed, but I did a video where I pulled out an interview he did whilst he was at Elitist Jerks as a player in terms of his philosophy when it came to raiding issues, which are notably different now. And there's lots of people going, oh, well, you can change your mind after time and stuff like that. My take on that was, I don't think he's changed his mind because of the passage of time. I think he's changed his mind because of his change in role. But I didn't even know he still raided with them. Presumably he doesn't get to take part in strategy discussions. What does he raid on out of curiosity? I have no idea. Shaman. Oh, we've beaten him. Okay, good. Resto Shaman, you mean the useful one? The consistently useful one, I should say. Because sometimes the other specs are good at times. No, I think it was Ghostcrawler that was a warrior. Or so the meme went. Well, again, sometimes, like, you've got to bear in mind, even he, who is game director now and very serious, Calgan was, yeah. I think Ghostcrawler was as well, though, wasn't he? Was he? Could have sworn he was a warrior. How many people who worked on Vanilla are still part of the Blizzard? Well, Blizzard team. They may be part of the Blizzard team, but not necessarily on that game. Because when World of Warcraft was coming out, they actually pulled people from everywhere. Everyone that worked at Blizzard worked on World of Warcraft. Because to get it out on time, they had to pool all their resources. So they put other games on hold and just grabbed people. That's why the code is such a mess. Because it was, you know, grabbing people to work on something, get it done. Bodge the job. But I think, like with any company, it's what? Hold on. So it's 13 years pretty much since it came out. And it took, what, I don't know, 4 years to make or something like that. So in all that time, it's very likely the majority would have moved on, I would have thought. Or at least a large number of them. Why have they not increased the bag size? Well, the story went for a long time. It comes back to one of these code bodging that they weren't able to do it without breaking everything in the game. Because again, they did things to get things done. They didn't do it with long-term planning in mind because they were up against it. So they just did things. But the last thing they had to say about it was that they think they might be able to change our normal bag size without breaking everything in the game. But that was a might. Anniversary event. The 13th one. I don't know. Maybe we'll get a hockey mask and a machete. Oh, that was Jason, wasn't it? Not Friday the 13th. No, that's Friday the 13th, isn't it? Yeah. It is Friday the 13th this week as well, isn't it? Yeah. But yeah, that was the story for quite a long time. As I say, they haven't as yet been able to say that they can change it now. Just simply that they think they might be able to. But anyway, we've gone on a bit. I'll give it another few minutes as I always do, just so we can finish off any other things people want to throw in. And then we'll call it a day there. What is the animal in the middle of the screen? What this animal is a new character in the new Star Wars film. Like I said, it's a cross between a piranha and a guinea pig. And, yeah, that's a thing. Chewbacca's new friend, I suspect. Any plans for spooky science experiments for Friday the 13th? No. But I do have. I will be thinking at some point of doing some Halloween-based experiments for Halloween when I go back after half term. I did a few last year. I'm going to have a rethink about it this year. I usually do the jack-o'-lantern with the glow stick in it, but they're so messy to clean out. I'm really bad at cleaning pumpkins out. Once we get rid of AP, well, we use AP tokens. I don't think they really clog our bags up. Legendary items, yes. Legendary items are occupying a lot of room in my bags. There's only one legendary item that doesn't get to stay in my bags, and that's the Retribution Helm, because that is just useless in every single situation imaginable. In fact, if it was my only legendary, it would still be in the bank, because I wouldn't even use it over the set bonuses. But anyway, I'm going to call it there then. I'll get this out on YouTube overnight from my point of view. So thanks for coming on. And I won't be streaming tomorrow, remember. I've put a thing on that when it goes onto the offline screen, because I'm going to be super late for the raid, which basically means I won't be raiding tomorrow. So I will see you on Thursday, possibly, when I am back. But I will see you later. Thanks a lot.